Today, I'm going to dive into things I've learned when getting into FPV drones, specifically because I took the building route instead of the bind and fly route. So with that, I also challenge Pretty with Pax and Lilith to make a video about this as well, because Jenny got into this a few months before I did, and then Lilith got into FPV 4 years ago. So I think it would be cool to hear their perspective about how they got into it, as everyone has a different experience when entering the hobby. What they found helpful could be very different from what I found helpful and what you even find helpful. And as someone who personally watched videos about this very thing when getting into FPV, it's very insightful to hear what people have to say about their experiences. I will also make a document with a list of things that I bought and still use to this day. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, make sure you check out the description below. But with that, I won't ramble on forever. We will get into it. I will start by saying if you have zero patience, building drones will be very hard for you because you gotta have a lot of it. Something I noticed about myself is that I have an extreme amount of patience. When something doesn't work, I often don't get super angry to the point where I want to quit and just kind of ditch it. I will figure it out, I will move on, and a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that I've been using a computer for 13 years. Google's my best friend, and I'm very stubborn. I just know how to find the information that I need to make things work, and if I'm really stumped, I'll ask people about it, but I have a lot of patience when it comes to things like that. So if you lack in the patience department, I can honestly say building drones will be very difficult for you. Everyone says this, but the simulator. I learned that a lot of people will use the simulator to actually learn how to fly a drone, but I've only put 10 hours on the sim because it actually makes me want to throw up. But the simulator for me was the first thing I did, not because I wanted to learn how to fly, but it was to make sure if I could see if it was something that could keep me interested. There's a lot of things people start but don't end up sticking with because they lose interest, and if you're about to drop $1,000 on something, you would hope that it would keep you interested. So that was the main reason why I actually bought the simulator. It did help me actually learn how to fly, of course, but that was irrelevant because I knew as soon as I got a drone and was able to fly it in the field, I would learn how to fly it. But I wanted to know if actually flying a drone would keep me interested. So that's what I did. Moving on. Tools. Do not buy crappy tools because it'll save you a few bucks, because in the long run, you're just going to end up replacing them anyways, and you're going to spend more than you intended on something as lame as a screwdriver. And that's just a really bad feeling. One tool specifically I did not buy, and I should have with my initial order of supplies, was a prop tool. When I got into this hobby, I didn't have a single tool in my house. I struggled for a very long time until I pulled the trigger on that thing because, I don't know, it was just life-changing for me. I didn't have any tools, so when I finally got one, I was able to put on my props with zero issues, and I'm far from joking. It was life-changing, and if I misplaced it, I'd probably lose my mind. So spend money on tools, good ones, please. The next thing I learned when getting into FPV was flux and a good soldering iron. I did not take this as serious as everyone made it seem, and it was a terrible time because of it. I bought a $50 iron from Canadian Tire, and it was I bought flux, but it had yet to come in the mail, so I started building without it, and it was just not a fun time. The solder was just sticking to the iron. The iron tip was too small and didn't work great on the bigger pads on the flight controller and ESC, and it was just overall not a good experience. The iron that I bought off of Amazon was actually way cheaper. It works way better, and it came with tweezers, which are also very helpful, by the way. Please get some tweezers. And it came with a bunch of spare tips, some bigger tips and smaller ones for different uses, obviously, and I love it. It works way better than the more expensive one from Canadian Tire. Facebook groups and Google. If you come across an issue while you're building, try to Google it first. Watch videos on how to fix said issue. Nothing annoys people more when the answer can be found on Google with a simple search. If you are genuinely confused and can't figure it out, ask someone online. I'm in a few Facebook groups, and they have been quite helpful for the most part, but they do crack jokes at the noobs quite a bit, so don't take it too personally. Every hobby has some jackasses, but someone will help you. Just use common sense and try to use Google first. Another thing that I learned was to keep everything. There were times when I started building and I would throw out a wire and I would later find out I needed it to extend something I snipped too short, or I would need to connect this to that on a different build and I wouldn't have extra wires or anything to do so with. So I just started keeping everything that a component would come with in a bin, and I call it my build bin, and it's been very helpful with almost all my recent builds. So keep everything. Keep all those little wires, just throw it in a bin, set it aside, and you'll be golden. With anything in life, if nothing is going right, just take a step back, take a break, and come back to it later. As a beginner, it can be very overwhelming to build stuff. If you're like me and had zero prior knowledge on how to build anything, it can be very frustrating. So take your time, read instructions carefully, and just relax and come back to it with a clear mind. Life will be good. It's not a race. These are the most important things that kind of popped into my head when I thought of this video idea. So if I come up with more things as I'm learning, overall, like, I'm still quite new to this hobby in comparison to other people. So if I find other useful things, I will make sure to tell you guys either on Instagram or in a blog post or even in a video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, comment below, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, all that fun stuff, and I will catch you in the next one. Adios.